Thanks again, Michelle, and welcome everybody else. My name is Dr. Brandon Pryor, as Michelle told you. Thank you to Biotech Dental for sponsoring tonight's webinar. And tonight we're going to be diving into how purpose, authenticity, and systems create sustainable, scalable implant success. This isn't exactly a clinical lecture. It's a mindset and systems lecture. It's about why we do what we do, how that translates into long-term sustainable growth. As is the case in a lot of these 1 hour webinars, there's a lot of information that we try to squeeze into a very small window of time. So forgive me if some of it does seem a little bit superficial, but my hope is that I can help you develop a growth-oriented mindset and have maybe 2 to 3 things you can take to your practice right away to start making an impact. All right, for some personal background, I started my practice from scratch in June of 2020 in the middle of COVID. So that was a really wonderful time to do that. It was on the tail end of it, at least, so people were allowed to kind of go back out in public for necessary things. We could only see one patient at a time in the building, and luckily for me, that's really all I had coming in, anyways. And we somewhat benefited from other offices kind of backlogs where people couldn't get in for quite a long time. Well, we've suffered through that and many other challenges to get where we are today. As Michelle kind of alluded to, I'm what you would refer to as a CE junkie. I just really love the business of dentistry. I love the clinical side of dentistry in some aspects, maybe not all. But more important than any credential is that I'm passionate. I'm really passionate about helping people unlock their highest potential. That's my patients, that's my staff, and that's people that I mentor and coach, and all of you. I am from St. Louis, born and raised. I went to Southern Illinois University and then Southern Illinois Dental School. And before opening my practice, I worked in several associateships. I said several, but there's actually only two. One was more of a DSO corporate kind of place, and the second one a private practice. So I got a little bit of a good mix between the years of 2017 and shortly after I opened my practice. Um, Really, I would say my experience as an associate largely motivated me to build the practice that we have today. In a lot of ways, I want to say I learned what not to do and what I didn't want my practice to be like. Not that all of it was bad, but I just didn't quite, I wasn't in the place that I envisioned myself to be when I graduated dental school. So ultimately, I set out to open my own practice. Just a quick map, because I keep saying I'm from St. Louis and the practices. Well, we are on the Missouri and Illinois border. I actually live southeast of St. Louis in a small town of Columbia, Illinois, and my practice is in the west suburbs of St. Louis in Missouri, really only like a 30-minute distance from one to the other. This is one of my whys. My family, my kids are a little bit more grown up now. Brooklyn, my really creative, artistic, and theater kid daughter. My son Knox, who loves baseball and just getting into a lot of trouble and physical fights with me and his friends. So we are kept on our toes by him, and the one who makes it all possible, my wife, Brittany. This is a glimpse into our practice. The photos are a few years old now, but I was really intentional at the outset with developing the brand and trying to change the way that people feel about being in a dental office. I really wanted something that stuck out from the norm so we could attract new patients. We're in a pretty competitive area. So if you're like everybody else, there's really not a whole lot to choose from other than referrals, which we didn't really have. And it took a lot of marketing dollars to kind of fuel our growth. We'll talk a little bit more about marketing later. Ultimately, the dental office we know is not a place that patients are dying to go to. They're not lining up out the door. They just know that they have to, or they're forced to by some type of urgent situation, whether it's pain, swelling, anything like that. Patients really care about how you make them feel, that they feel heard, and that you don't hurt them in the process of delivering their care. A great modern patient experience really doesn't have to be insanely expensive. Even if you're in an existing practice, just some painted walls, floors, scent machine, have it smell not like a dental office, TVs on the ceiling, all that's relatively cheap, to be honest, to implement into the practice. Um, so I think a lot of our initial reviews from patients was just like, wow, this doesn't feel like a dental practice at all. And that's really, I think, been beneficial to a lot of our growth. I want to give you some quick statistics on our growth since 2020. None of the data I'm presenting is to brag or anything. I just want to show you that practice growth can be predictable and achievable if you follow the right recipes. So our collections in 2020, not being a full year since we opened in June, was close to about 300,000. And fast forward to now, you can kind of see those numbers, but we're on track this year to end at close to 3.5 with a couple of months, about a month and a half to go. On average, in 2021, which was our first full year open, we were seeing about 55 new patients every single month. And currently in this year, we've kind of increased that, actually doubled it basically to about 110 every month. And the real big component that I'm proud of is the charity that we offer to our community. In total, we've donated about $83,500 in cash. And on top of that, we've done about $136,800 in pro bono work. Um, that's kind of just the cost it would have been for a regular patient as if they were paying. And I'll talk a little bit more about our donations later and the people that we work with. So this is where I believe so many dentists tend to get it wrong. True success is built on purpose, authenticity, and communication. We're not in the tooth business, honestly, or even the dental implant business. It has little to do with the skill set or any particular procedure, but we're really in the impact business, I would say. You can take all the clinical CE that you want, but ultimately, without the rest of the things that we'll talk about today and some of the soft skills, none of it really matters. You'll see that skill set and procedures that you can do are only a small piece of the growth factor. That shift in recognizing the deeper purpose of what we do changes everything. Changes how we lead, how we communicate with patients, with team members, and ultimately how we grow. Quickly, I'm going to show you this patient journey chart that I created. I think up front, it's beneficial to kind of outline that and talk about the patient touch points in order to continue the conversation that we're going to have. Um, Ultimately, I like to break it down into its component parts and audit our patient's journey from the first point of contact with our brand, which could be, the first point of marketing material that they see, all the way through case acceptance and the recare cycle. One of the biggest drivers of growth in any business, but especially in dentistry, is return business. And we luckily have the ability that, or the the benefit essentially that our patients have to return every 6 months, if they're doing the right thing, and we're trying to hold them accountable to that. In our case, for sure, it's every 6 months at least, sometimes 3 or 4, depending on the periodontal status. But the simplest thing that you can do right away to impact your growth tomorrow is to set goals to reappoint your patients for their next hygiene visit before they leave, if you're not doing that already. My team is consistently hitting around 90% reappointment rate. There's a lot of options out there for like analytics softwares and automation to help you track and keep those numbers up. If you really want to find success in growing a business, good leadership is going to be extremely important. Even more important when you're running a large multi-doctor practice. We now have 2 full-time doctors, including myself, and I have a second associate onboarding part-time next month, and we're up to now, I think, 16 staff members total. So leadership might not have been all that important for me in the early days, but it's probably the most important thing that I do now in running the business. And ultimately, there's no recipe, no one course you can take. It's kind of a developmental process. A lot of it comes by learning from your mistakes and trial by fire. I've done a ton of things wrong, made a lot of mistakes along the way, but all of them have been impactful mistakes in that we learn from them. So, where it all started for me on this kind of leadership journey and this kind of growth mindset overall were these books written by Simon Sinek. He's a motivational speaker, a consultant for companies. I think I came across his speech like probably 2019, shortly before we were opening the practice. In my opinion, he's one of the best speakers and writers on leadership. Conveniently, I ran into those ideas, like I said, right before I built the practice, and it's really connected with me, everything he was explaining and talking about. So I give him a lot of credit for where we are today. I'm going to play a part of his speech to give you some background quickly if you haven't seen or heard of him before, or read the books, because ultimately he just sounds so much better than I possibly could at explaining these concepts. So there's probably a short ad here, but we'll play just a couple minutes of this.
What matters to post-university people? People who pick Post want an online education that works on their schedule, so they can get a degree that can help move their career forward without having to leave the people that matter most behind. Are you a Post person?
Probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it, but very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. By why, I mean what's your purpose, what's your cause, what's your belief, and why should anyone care? The inspired leaders and the inspired organizations all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this: we make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. That's how most marketing is done. That's how most sales is done. We say what we do. We say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? People don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. The goal is not to do business with everybody who needs what you have. The goal is to do business with people who believe what you believe. Again, the goal is not just to sell people who need what you have. The goal is to sell to people who believe what you believe. If you hire people just because they can do a job, they'll work for your money. But if you hire people who believe what you believe, they work for you with blood and sweat and tears. Something called the law of diffusion of innovation.
All right, I think that kind of gets the point across. And to that last point that he had, I mean, I've taken a lot of these principles, and uh, maybe it's a stroke of luck, but I do believe there's something to how we built our vision out, and we're getting team buy-in. But I've never had to put Indeed ads or hiring ads out for a hygienist. Some of that is network, but we've also just made a lot of connections, and we just kind of have people that want to come work for us because we're doing things differently. And a lot of my hygiene team is really dedicated because they feel a sense of purpose in what they're doing, not just cleaning teeth, but they do believe in the impact that we're providing patients.
The first.
All right. So here is Simon's golden circle in the diagram form. If you message this way, the way that he kind of discussed, then you're not really competing on price, which some people kind of get locked into. That is exactly where my first associate experience lied. A lot of it was coupon marketing through direct mail, cheap entry point, new patient exams, limited exams for X amount of dollars, cheap dental implant, things like that. So you're going to get those price shoppers in those cases. And we did some of that early on, like a free whitening kind of deal. We had a lot of people come in for it. And then ultimately, I did not really see a lot of them back in 6 months. So it was not exactly the experience I was hoping for. As a dentist, where I grew up with my dentist, just knew all of my family, and we were going there for years and years. And That was kind of more what I was shooting for. Um, so like he said, he uses Apple as a good example, but you already know these Apple iPhones, they come out with so often with these seemingly like small types of changes and updates. They're just charging the most money for phones compared to most people, but nobody really competes with them at all. It's not at all about price. Um, Ultimately, there's no competition in a category of one, and that's what they made themselves and what I aspire to make us, and I hope you aspire to make your practices as well. They market their why. And the phone companies that sell the phones, they make it easy for people to afford them. They put them into your monthly budget, your monthly bill for low X amount of money. But like he said, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. When patients understand your purpose, your why, trust is built pretty instantly. And trust is the most valuable currency in our field. So I took that idea and I spent a lot of time trying to come up with our why and to be able to really state that in a very simple vision statement. And ultimately, this is what I came up with. Our vision here at 100 West Dental is to empower people to live a long, healthy, and confident life. That is the why. Our mission is to strive to improve the quality of life for every person who walks through our doors. That's the how, and we accomplish this by providing the necessary knowledge, the dental care, and the support alongside an unmatched patient experience that's tailored to each individual's specific needs and desires. Ultimately, that's the what. That's what we do. And we start from the outside in, and a lot of our marketing messaging revolves around that. You'll see this other logo here on Healing Action. That is our nonprofit partner. That's who we donate money to. Um, since we opened our doors in 2020, every month we donate $5 on behalf of every single new patient. We participate in any other fundraising events they have. They made us the chair of their 10th anniversary event this year, and ultimately named a corporate giving award after our practice. So we'll talk a little bit more about profit and why that's important to help advance your cause and support your community. Because a lot of people don't like to talk about profit and making money and selling, but that's pretty much what we're doing if you boil it down. Um, I love having this because this is what my team is ultimately tied to. We review it every month at our meetings. We talk about our wins and successes. Um, but if you authentically have a driving vision, if your team sees the impact that you and them create for these other people, especially Healing Action, I didn't really give you a lot of background, but they support members of our community who have suffered from sex trafficking locally. A lot of their members lack just basic needs and care, so we also offer free services to some of their members in need. So when our team is seeing the impact we're having for an organization like this and the good work that we do, they feel a sense of purpose. It really becomes less about hourly pay and benefits, and more about being part of this team and being part of this mission that we're on. One of the great business minds of our generation, Michael Scott, when asked if he would rather have people fear him or love him, he said, "Would I rather be feared or loved? Easy, both. I want people to be afraid of how much they love me." I love The Office. I watch it over and over and over again. This is one of my favorite TV characters ever. But I do really relate to him in some ways, especially with this quote. In a way, leading your team is like parenting. If you're a parent and you lead a team, you kind of understand what I mean by that. They don't always like me, believe it or not, but they respect me and they know that I have their best interests at heart. And they know my purpose and my vision for everything, and we're all aligned within that. Like my kids, I typically will put their needs above my own and support them in a lot of ways, not even directly just related to their work in dentistry, but if people are in need, I'm just going to help them, get out of a rut sometimes. And I've really built up a lot of loyalty from most of my team. But this kind of leads into the next concept, the next book from Simon in the lineup. Let's see, Leaders Eat Last. So another cornerstone of leadership, your team is really the engine that makes everything run. In small business, the team is basically like a second family. You spend more time with them than you do your actual family pretty much most of the time. It's extremely important to support them. And when there's a mistake made, give them grace. Don't just punish them or berate them. And some mistakes they make are just a lack of understanding or a lack of training. And sometimes we just need to realize that's on us. It's a little bit different if they're just showing up late all the time or they're disrespectful and not being good team members. But that's another conversation. We could talk about that for probably an hour. A lesson that I learned over time is that not everybody that works for me is built like me or operates the same way that I do. So I had to really lower some of my expectations to realistic. What can I realistically, sorry, word salad, realistically expect from them and their performance and what I'm asking them to do. And something you hear a lot of the time in business, or at least used to, they used to say the customer is always right. I have a massive disagreement with that statement. I don't know who made it, and I think it's probably the worst possible thing ever said. Um, in dentistry, especially, I mean, if a patient is rude or disrespectful to my team, they're just going to get an immediate dismissal. You can easily replace a patient with another patient, but replacing good employees, especially now when most of you know this, it's extremely, extremely difficult. So the basic idea of that book is that happy employees ensure happy customers, and happy customers ensure healthy profit in that order. So my focus is always on the team and supporting them. Profit is important. We shouldn't understate that profit for a business is the gas that allows you to advance your cause or your why. Without a healthy profit, you're not able to grow. You're not able to create the impact. You're not able to give raises or provide benefits. You're not going to be able to do the fun team stuff that everybody wants to do all the time. Team lunch, pizza party. I feel like I get requests every week for something like that. I believe it's important, though, that your team understands this whole circle. If you lead with purpose, they won't just think you're buying your next vacation or paying for your yacht. I'm openly talking about profit and our success as a business because they see what we use that for. I invest most of it back into the practice growth. I invest a lot of it into our charitable giving. I invest a lot of it into them. And I do take some myself when I feel it's appropriate, but ultimately I kind of live a low key lifestyle personally. A lot of it goes into CE. Um, the final book from Simon that I read and used to help formulate my mindset here is the leadership concept of the infinite game. Many people that run business get caught in the trap of using short-term decision making for long-term problems. Typically, it's quicker and there's fear that prevents them from making the right decisions sometimes. In dentistry, especially, we're playing a very long game. Examples of like short-term thinking here would be the coupon marketing, haggling over like $1 an hour on a raise or a potential hire, holding on to toxic employees because it's hard to have that tough conversation, price shopping websites and content creation, just to name a few things. Um, Instead of those, my advice would be to market with impact, not on price. Pay good people good money. Be quick to diagnose and treat cultural cancers in the team, and ultimately invest money in good content. And we'll talk a little bit more about marketing content very soon. This is something I just one day it popped into my head, trying to kind of explain a decision-making process that I have. I just call it the three pillars framework. I just quickly wanted to share it. Every decision in my practice, whether it's buying a new scanner, changing a workflow, training a team member for something, it all has to support one or more of these pillars. The first pillar, and the most important probably for us since we started, is that patient experience. Does it make their care easier? Does it make it more comfortable? Does it make it more personalized? Happy, trusting patients drive the growth more than any marketing campaign ever will. The second pillar is efficiency. I am huge on efficiency. I don't like wasted time, especially when I get in the operatory. I'm wanting to get in and out just as much as the patient is. Um, the questions I really look for here, is it going to simplify our process at all? Is it going to save us time? Is it going to create more predictability or reduce stress on our team? Chaos in the practice, especially as you scale and get bigger, chaos and lack of predictability is going to kill your profit and culture faster than just about anything else. And the third pillar is profit, not necessarily in a greedy sense, like I said, but in sustainability. If you're not profitable, you can't reinvest in your team. You can't reinvest in your practice, your technology, your equipment, or your community. Before making any decision, I like to ask this: does it support at least one of these pillars, and ideally two or all three of them? If it doesn't, I'm really hesitant and typically going to say no. Um, this has really become my internal compass for helping making some of these bigger decisions. Just to share a couple of examples, I mean, the easy one right off the bat to me is building a new operatory if you have room for it. It's going to nail all three of these. Obviously, the profit's going to go up, your efficiencies are going to go up, the patient experience is going to go up if you're not having to book them out so far because now you have open capacity. They might not be sitting around as much if you're super busy and you have a lot of patients like I'm kind of dealing with right now. Sometimes we're running behind and we don't have an overflow chair to put anybody in. Um, the opposite side of that, I recently was approached to buy some large equipment from like an aesthetics company called M-Face. They wanted to sell this radio frequency thing that you put on your face, mostly for aesthetics, but they have a TMJ feature to it as well. Um, it also costs more than like $250,000, which is insane to me because I built my practice for 500,000 in total. That type of thing will not increase my profit, even though they try to give you math that says it will. It's definitely not going to make me more efficient. It's not really going to increase my patient experience, and it really doesn't fit into the vision at all. So I don't want to waste my time even considering things like that. All right, let's take a closer look at profit. Profit is a very simple math equation. I'm sure you guys really understand this already, but just to kind of dive in a little bit deeper, profit is income minus expenses, but the real work is in understanding all the levers that affect this entire equation. To increase your profit, you have to increase your income or decrease your expenses, obviously. If you want to grow, in my opinion, you need to focus on growing the income. The income carries so much more weight to accelerate growth compared to lowering your expenses. You're not really ever going to save your way to success in most cases. Um, the historic example just generally is, stopping your Starbucks habit to save like $5 a day. Nobody got rich doing that. And you can save 1% on your supplies, and it might benefit you a little bit. But once you actually grow your practice and your income and you're at the scale that we are, then a 1% swing in saving, excuse me, 1% swing in saving on your supplies, that number then becomes much, much bigger. All right, so this patient journey diagram, bringing it back, for me, it's actually an auditing chart. I created this for my office. It shows the flow of the patient journey all the way through the practice. And everything above that income circle affects the outcome of the income. The only thing outside of that would be like your accounts receivable systems, billing, things like that. Your marketing at the top here, it's intended to really create new patient calls. That's the whole purpose. Here's where it actually makes sense to spend money to make money. That's why they call it a return on investment. Your new patient appointment below that is your opportunity to wow them, give them a good experience, and then set the stage ultimately for treatment acceptance, good positive Google reviews, patient referrals, and the lifetime of patients. We'll take a closer look at the treatment acceptance bit in just a moment. Sorry, dry throat. So bringing back that profit equation really quick, these are some of the levers that you can pull to increase your income. Notice that skill set is just one small part of that. And for example, adding implants to your practice, it's to me, it's one of the best procedures you can bring in house, honestly. Um, but just doing that alone isn't going to really move the needle a whole lot if you're not hitting on some of these other points. You can have all the skills in the world, but if the patient's not saying yes to your treatment presentations, then it really doesn't matter all that much. So this is why I'm taking a broader focus. It's not really hyper focused on implants. It's highly related to implants, but it's just related to business in general. So before we move on, I want to take a quick moment to talk about why I believe implants are a great opportunity for most GPs to add in their toolbox. I think really easy posterior single unit implants could be in the toolbox of nearly every uh, general dentist. So, why implants? I think you can all understand the growth trajectory of implants in the recent past and going forward, but according to the ADA, more than 5 million dental implants are placed every year in the US, and obviously that's just continuing to grow. Why? People are aging. They're more likely to lose teeth due to gum disease, tooth decay, other factors. But Americans as a whole, we consume an excess of calories, saturated fats, added sugars, sodium. We just have poor diet. We have poor systemic health long term and more adverse oral health in some populations. So SAD, that stands for the standard American diet. And, for a well-developed country that probably has everything we possibly could need, we live in the world of abundance, and sometimes we're our own worst enemies. So we have a lot of healthcare expenditures, and most of our patients in the general population, they're living the second half of their life battling chronic disease and not living a great, great life. So more tooth loss occurs as a consequence of that, and we're getting really good at keeping people alive longer, even if they're sick. So that's even more and more opportunity coming. So another reason I think the dental implants are growing, it's just becoming easier to place them. Advancements in the designs and the technology make it so much more predictable, and that's why I think it's pretty much within reach for most general dentists to be able to place these single posterior implants. Ultimately, there's a massive increase in public awareness over the last 10 years for dental implants. Probably everybody knows somebody that has dental implants and is aware of them in some form or fashion. So the market size, here's a chart from Precedence Research. It's a worldwide marketing and consulting company showing the market for implants from 2020 to 2030 in the amount of billions. Essentially, they were expecting it to double over this time period. Current data actually shows, I looked this up this week, there's some precedence research currently. We're outpacing these projections. And in 2025, we're on track for about 5.9 billion, whereas here on the projection, you see 4.7 billion. Ultimately, the bottom line, this is a trend that's going up, and there's really no signs of this slowing down. All right, we're going to go from market to marketing. So this is the top of that patient journey chart that I showed you shortly ago. Marketing in dentistry actually was not legal before, probably about the 1980s. Going into the 80s, there was some legislation passed that made it legal. That's when we had the yellow pages, the newspapers, the magazines, mostly print marketing. In the 90s, we start to see more direct mail ads coming, postcards and things like that. The first generation of websites started coming out in the later 90s. And we turned to the millennium, the 2000s. That gave us the internet search, SEO, pay-per-click, all the terms we're used to hearing now. And then in the 2010s, we start seeing a larger emphasis on the Google reviews and the explosion of social media platforms, which we're all familiar with now. And then the coming trend is AI. You're still going to see a good mix of most of these, especially the latter few. We're still going to utilize direct mail in some aspects. We did that early on when we had empty chairs. It is just a way more expensive form of marketing, but it can work. But essentially, we've moved from the early days of what I would call passive consumption of marketing, where maybe they come across it at the right time, more to active engagement, which is a key word in the social media realm. So today's patients are primarily coming through the internet search and social media. Social proof and authenticity are driving most of their decisions at this point. They're looking for other people that have had direct experience with your business. For example, almost every day I see a post in our local Facebook groups. In our area, it's like West County of St. Louis. There's moms groups. There's all kinds of them out there. Almost every day I see in those groups somebody's asking for a recommendation for a dentist. Maybe it's because I am a dentist that those tend to always come to the top of my feed. Maybe the algorithm has figured me out a little bit. Um, but when I see them ask, if they're using descriptors to describe what they're looking for, they're saying they want honest, reasonable, ethical dentist. None of them are looking for cheap dentist. If they're saying those things, there is definitely an expectation that they're running into the opposite somewhere. Maybe they've had experiences in the past where they don't trust, or that they've heard stories. I believe the majority of dentists are honest, reasonable, and ethical. I just think most dentists lack good systems and more than that, probably just communication. These are things that we just don't get taught in school. So you need to find this type of education on your own or learn it some other way because dental school basically teaches us how to drill a hole into a tooth and fill it with Play-Doh. Um, Realistically, a big word that I like to use is authenticity. Your authenticity is your best attribute. Um, in the early days of opening in 2020, and in those groups and those recommendations, we didn't show up. I mean, we were brand new. We didn't really have a lot of recommendations at that point. But over time, the snowball effect. We have multiple people suggesting us on most of these posts, and we have probably five just raving fans that any chance they get, they're going to scream our name in these posts, and it's really great. Another thing, if you see people doing things like that for you and referring a lot of patients to you, I just send them surprise gifts once in a while just to let them know we see it and we appreciate it. Tomorrow's patients, AI, hot topic. Everybody's talking about AI. Everything is AI. Um, but it's a coming thing. It's not slowing down. And where you're used to searching on Google and getting a list of items to look into and choose from, um, you're going to go to a single personalized recommendation from something like ChatGPT. If you talk to ChatGPT, it kind of learns you, it starts to know you a little bit. And if you ask it for a recommendation for a dentist, it will give you a recommendation for a dentist that suits you. So my advice here is just to start building your reputation now. Do things that will make people leave you reviews that say you are reasonable, ethical, honest, comfortable, pain-free, that kind of stuff. You're no longer going to be able to be one drop of water in this large ocean of dental practices in the United States. You have to kind of stand out now. And again, there's no competition in a category of one. To talk a little bit more about authenticity, like Simon Sinek explained, the most resilient companies market their why. Patients and team members today crave authenticity. I prefer to share real stories and real impacts that we've made on patients' lives. Um, we're no longer in a world you can just market being a family dentist because family dentists are all over the place. So instead of being a dentist, you need to be the dentist in your area. In our content, there's always less emphasis on the product or service itself and a heavy emphasis on how they impacted these patients. And it's not about the teeth. It's about the transformation and confidence, the health, the function. And this is Peggy. This is a screenshot of one of my interviews that we did for our recent website update. She's just one of the greatest patients. Another raving fan. After we did a full mouth rehab for her, and she was actually referred to us by another dentist, which is really cool. And this photo here is authenticity. This is a screenshot of one of our videos on the website in which I'm interviewing her about her experience. At the end, I'll share my website. You can go and see some of these videos if you want, just to hear how they're talking about their experience. Another one, Hannah, she came to us in 2020. She talked right away about how she wanted to fix her teeth with cosmetics. We could have really executed that probably right away. But after doing the exam and radiographs and looking around, it was clear she needed some other work beforehand to establish a good oral health baseline first. The short game decision would have been to knock out the smile design for the production and then hope she does the rest. Um, as a long game player and long term thinker, I just said, hey, we should probably think of a different route first, and then we can ultimately do the aesthetics later. I know a lot of you guys will approach it that way, so this is not about how to tell you how to approach patients, but if you can honestly look them in the face and they feel that you're so authentic in that conversation, you get these types of reviews and these quotes. She deeply appreciated that I told her this, that we need to do this the right way if you want things to last with minimal maintenance going forward. One more clip. Ironically, another patient named Peggy, Peggy 2. She passed up working with some other dentists. I think she had another 2 consults prior to me, probably. She had some financial constraints that prevented ideal treatment, and she just didn't connect well with those dentists on a personal level. She's kind of a class clown and a goofball, so she looked for somebody that was a little. I think my laid back personality kind of led into that. My ability to kind of joke with her a little bit lowered some barriers. Sometimes these nervous patients, their anxiety will manifest in different ways, and sometimes these outwardly funny, outgoing patients are just kind of covering up for their fears. So we broke down some walls, and I mean, sometimes that's all you really need to do. You just give them some time and your ears and just listen. All right, speaking to the marketing content a little bit more, there's stock imaging and stock content or custom content. I am a heavy favorite. I'm very bullish on custom content over any stock images, memes, cartoons, and things like that. This is our Instagram feed on the right, and then another office I came across online to the left. Not that it's terrible, but it's just kind of cheesy, tacky um, in appearance. I mean, if you're posting this kind of stuff, it's better to be active doing this than nothing, but you're not going to get a lot of engagement. Custom content looks really professional. It's something people will engage with. And you can actually see some of the view counts and stuff on these videos in the thousands, hundreds, things like that. But engagement is huge in social media. The more people like, comment, interact, watch your videos, it even goes down to how long they look at your picture or how many seconds are they holding on to your Instagram reel before they swipe to the next one. That higher engagement is going to push your content to the top of their feeds and other people's feeds more often. And it's also going to help your website rank higher in search. Stock is better than nothing. Like I said, it just doesn't stand out that much, and people will typically tend to scroll right by it. I mean, most of these posts I think I looked at had 0 comments, maybe 1 or 2 likes. Um, just not a whole lot of traction there. Excuse me. So everybody knows Google is still the king. You need to make sure that you or your marketing company claims and establishes your office under the Google My Business platform if you haven't already. But essentially, it's your profile on Google. The more information that you have here, the more Google will favor your website in rankings. And also notice that the social media posts that we share on our Instagram, Facebook, that all get cross-posted to Google page. They have social media updates on Google as well. I don't typically do this myself. There's some softwares that will help post to all of them. Actually, if you just create a post, you can push it to all of them at once. But I pay somebody in our marketing company to do these posts on a regular basis. Reviews, obviously, that's another huge piece, as most of you know. And again, Google is going to favor the authenticity. So actual reviews, not just people clicking 5 stars without any descriptors. Yeah, so a positive glowing review, like you see here in some of these, it's just authenticity in motion. This is the power of social proof, which is one of the psychological principles of persuasion that Dr. Robert Cialdini describes. He had a book called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. It's a really good read on psychology and how people make purchasing decisions, and different tips and tricks in there on how to kind of, maybe how this sounds bad, but it's psychological manipulation. But at least in our case, if you're ethical dentists, um, we're manipulating them and kind of leading them into doing something that they should be doing for themselves anyways. And I pulled a couple reviews from here from our Google page. We've had a good amount of these basically unsolicited reviews where people write paragraphs. I mean, it's incredible. And most of the time they're mentioning my team members and not me. Uh, but I'll take that all day. I said basically unsolicited because we do have an automated text system that nudges them to write a review if they enjoyed their experience with us. But it still blows my mind they take the time to open that, click that, and then take the time to write these paragraphs. I mean, again, a lot of it mentions my staff, and I really, really love that. But this kind of goes back to the Simon Sinek Leaders Eat Last. Happy employees ensure happy customers. And I mean, this is just, it's like a proud dad moment when I see these come through in my email. At the end of the webinar, the Q&A, I can speak more to some of the softwares or things for reviews if anybody's interested in something like that and some recommendations. All right, moving into case acceptance. Once you send out your marketing and a potential patient decides to actually pick up the phone and call your practice, there's still plenty of barriers in the way to actually convert them to a patient and then ultimately into income for your business. Here are some of those barriers that can get in the way. It's very common to see people complain about the lack of new patients in their business, and they'll blame the marketing company. But the marketing company's job is just to help you get the patients, or should I say, potential patients, to call the practice. There's a number of other things that have to happen internally to get the patient into the office, into the chair, and to say yes to the recommended treatment. You can waste a ton of money in marketing without ensuring proper systems and training. A lot of practices miss a ton of calls. I think the call answer rate for the average dental practice is 50% or less. And a lot of times they just don't have phone coverage when the patients are actually calling at times that are convenient for the patient, in the evenings, over lunch, and even now we have online scheduling direct to our practice management system. So that's been another huge benefit for patients that are looking for convenience, which everybody is now. So that's why, in my opinion, utilizing a good call center can be massively beneficial. Sometimes call centers get a bad rap. There's some pretty bad ones out there that won't be a good representation of your practice. There's one that I really like. I pay them a good premium for it, but I'll take payment for a new patient over an empty chair all day. I think I might pay them $50 a new patient that they schedule, but they only charge me if the patient actually shows up, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing. So, treatment presentation, case acceptance. I looked for reports. I found some on the internet, and there's just a big range of this. But on average, the case acceptance in dental offices ranged from 34 to about 60% overall. I mean, if you average those two things, those two numbers on the far end, you're going to be somewhere 50% or less. That's a really mind-blowing statistic, in my opinion. If you're suggesting treatment that we deem necessary for a patient's health and we're diagnosing and treatment planning ethically, why are people saying yes less than half the time? I just don't get it. Again, I think a lot of it boils down to communication. The goal in my practice, I shoot for 70%, which I mean, even that, it's a 7 out of 10 still low. But you're never going to get 100%. I mean, that's the ideal, but it's just not realistic. Ultimately, your acceptance for new patients is going to be lower than your existing patients, mostly because there's not as much trust built yet. Another another reason why the reappointment rate, scheduling them before they leave for the next hygiene appointment, is such a big thing to me and really important. The acceptance is going to be lower as well for your higher value procedures like dental implants, cosmetics, things of that nature, just because they're higher in cost, of course, out of pocket cost. And I'll say a lot of that could be due to the failures of the dental insurance industry not wanting to cover needed treatment, but only diagnostic treatment 100%. So there are ways to tip the odds in your favor still. More on that in just a bit. Sometimes the biggest barrier is just the mindset of the doctor and the clinical team. Well, I guess even the front office team, if you're having a treatment coordinator or somebody like that presenting the financial plan. But ultimately, there's a fear of selling or just a fear of hearing the word no. People don't like to be rejected, especially for me, like my hygiene team. Sometimes they can be a little bit timid because most of them are like very caring. They're very like motherly and they just don't want to hear the word no and they want to take care of people, but they don't like to feel like they're selling something, even sometimes, even if they know it's something the patient needs. So, unless you or your team believe that what you're offering isn't in the best interest of the patients, then in my opinion, this should really never get in your way. And sometimes I still have to I say get on my hygiene team. I just nudge them a little bit like, hey, they kind of need this. Let's just try to work on that communication a little bit more. Um, and we kind of move on from there. Sorry. Another quote from the great Michael Scott. You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Let me tell you pretty quickly how to get in your own way. Do this. Don't tell patients how you can help them. So to increase your odds, you got to take more shots. The easiest way to increase the amount of shots you take is to diagnose what's in front of you. There's a lot of dentists that are scared to diagnose something. Again, fear of rejection, fear of saying no, fear of telling the patient they owe money to do it. The next best way from there is to increase your skill set, add dental implants, add to your procedure mix. Invisalign's another one that we do a lot of. And those are just naturally going to have less conversion, but it will definitely increase your bottom line if you're doing those procedures efficiently. So a couple of key points that I like to stress to my team and hopefully hits home with you. Everyone deserves the opportunity to say yes to your best care. If you don't present your ideal plan, you're taking the opportunity away from them. It's not your place to diagnose their bank account. You have no data to make that diagnosis either. And ultimately, some people that look rich don't have money, and vice versa. In order to sell, you have to understand what patients are actually seeking. They're looking for value. They're not looking for the implants themselves. It's the aesthetics, the function, the self-confidence. But ultimately, people buy what they value. This little bag that looks like trash is a Louis Vuitton bag that sold for $150,000. People bought that. Pretty interesting. Um, so in dental school, we learn, give all the options, discuss the pros and cons of each option, and give all the estimates. And they called it fully informed, but I think they're fully confused at that point, and confused people just aren't going to buy. Ultimately, we just have to stress more on the problems and the consequences. That's what the presentation is about. Then you get the solution. They ask, man, what can you do for me? They look like this guy. Please help me avoid the pain that might be coming from this big amalgam cracked tooth. But ultimately, patients want solutions to the problems that they know they have. So you have to present the problem, not the crown, but the consequences of not moving forward. We all know problems of missing teeth and the consequences of that, so I'm just going to kind of skip through that. Tools and aids, analogies. We're all fans of analogies. I think everybody understands that. iTero scanner is huge for us in our practice, and a photo folder. And this is probably the one thing I could say, if you implement this, you will increase your case acceptance right away. Show them these photos. Don't talk about um, what you're seeing. If you show them these photos, pictures speak 1,000 words. You kind of understand that. So if I see a patient with an amalgam tooth like this, I'll show them this photo of somebody else that did nothing. And you don't really have to say as much. They see that photo and they know that they do not want that. Um, Back to implants, you can do nothing. There's consequences with that. Bridge, condition of the abutment, teeth needs to be considered. I'm kind of blowing through this a little bit quicker because I know this is all pretty basic dentistry stuff. Um, Keep it simple. I mean, the more you talk, the more people kind of get lost. Here's some quick, easy questions you can ask. Do you want a plastic denture tooth that you have to take in and out multiple times a day? Do you want a solution that requires us to compromise the health of the adjacent teeth? Do you want the cheapest solution or the most ideal solution? I like this because there's a contrast built in. It really just shows that the ideal and long-lasting solution is not going to be the cheap one. So that's kind of the point there. We all know we're going to get some rebuttals, like the implants are expensive, but ultimately, people, again, they're going to buy what they value. So you have to build that value. Otherwise, they're not going to buy anything. A lot of times, I pass this off to my treatment coordinator if they ask about money. I give them a range. I say, listen, Lauren's really good at helping people figure out how to fit this into their budget. She'll go over the details with you, and we're definitely not going to do anything that you're not comfortable with moving forward. But ultimately, you got to let the patient choose. Try not to talk them into it, even if you refer the patient to a surgeon. If there's complications and they feel like you convinced them to do it, you are the a-hole. This is also important for case acceptance, in my opinion. Do not print out your sheet from your practice management software. These are the same treatment plans. Confusion on the left, simplicity on the right, non-dental terms. It's plain English, clear breakdown of what they owe, and clear options for them to pay. Options and threes are always good. Profitability, we kind of talked about that and the impact and all of that. So I'm going to run through this because we're getting short on time. And lastly, I want to go into efficiencies, especially in the hygiene department. My hygienists are always preheating these patients. That way I'm kind of a bobblehead when I walk in the door. I'm just saying, yes, I agree with Emily. She basically, now we've been working for 5 years together. She knows me. She knows my treatment plans. I'm going in there and agreeing. I'm signing off on the diagnosis to make it official. But I'm the second opinion in my own office. They're less shocked when you do that because the hygienist sees them for a long time. If they don't say anything, they just think everything's fine for the last hour. And then you come in and you say all this stuff, and then you're the greedy dentist looking for money. Hygiene ready sheet, I'm going to show you that, and patient grading. And then presenting finances in the operatory. This has actually been studied and shown to increase case acceptance. You keep them in that urgency, you keep them in that same mindset. In my office, I actually have my hygiene team doing a lot of their own presentations because they already have that relationship built. Let me show you this first, and I'll go back to that. But our hygiene ready sheet, bright pink. Once they're done with the diagnostics and they've discussed things with the patient, they bring this to me in my office or in my other operatories that I'm doing treatment in. It's bright pink so we don't miss it. They list their name, what room they're in, the patient name, if they're new to the doctor or not, chief complaints, any medical updates, potential treatment they discussed, and a patient readiness grade, whether or not they request a conference. So I go in anytime during the prophy or whatever. You have 20 minutes to get in and out of there. Whereas if you just wait till the end, that hygienist might be waiting 20 minutes for you to get out of the room. The patient grading and readiness scale for me is just helps me figure out how much time I might sit in there and talk to the patient about certain things. If it's A, it's like they're ready to roll. The patient has been informed by the hygienist. I just try to find the easiest path to get them to schedule and offer personalized payment plans or options. B is like, well, let me say this again. So A is like somebody that's already aware of the problems coming in. Like they're just really motivated out on the outset. B is kind of right underneath that, where they didn't know about these problems, but they're definitely open to the conversation they've been having, receptive of the information. C is like they're unaware, they kind of shrug it off, they're really indifferent. So sometimes in those cases, I'll just start with something small and easy and not give them a overwhelming treatment plan. Just get some traction and some motivation, some momentum, sorry. And then D, apathetic and deflecting, just kind of really push standoffish a little bit, pushing away the conversation. I'll start with urgent or easy treatment. Try to keep them on our 6 month schedule, but ultimately, if these patients don't get rescheduled for the next hygiene visit, I really not going to stress myself out. All right, just coming up on the hour. So to summarize, I know that was a lot, but the points: lead with purpose, start with why. Find a reason to do what you do that's not related to money, but related to a bigger purpose. Communicate with authenticity. Authenticity sells. Authenticity is what people are looking for today. Create efficient and scalable systems, and also have a growth mindset. So, thank you for your time and attention this evening. I hope you get a pearl or two you can implement here in your practice pretty quick. If you want to see our website, here it is. You can watch the patient testimonials and just kind of see the custom content. Um, the easiest ways to reach me are through my email here or my personal Instagram page at Dr. Brandon Pryor. I'm pretty active on there, so if anybody wants to follow, shoot me any follow-up questions. I'm an open book. I have nothing to hide, and I love, helping other people achieve things that they're looking to achieve. So um, let's wrap it up. I guess we'll see if there's any questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pryor. It looks like there are about 3 questions in the chat. Do you have visibility into the chat or do I need to read them?
I'm trying to maximize my window here.
Huh.
All right, chat. What has been the single most valuable investment, whether CE, mentorship, or a business decision that truly moved the needle for my practice? That's a great question, and a challenging question. I took a lot of CE on the front end on building a startup and learning the business. And if you have those in place first, you can do just general dentistry and do really well. And then the other CE is the icing on top. I completed the COIS curriculum. That's probably one of the biggest impacts for me for like impact and what I'm able to do for patients that really need it. I can handle just about anything that walks in the door at this point, and I feel comfortable doing that. I've always invested in coaching. I have masterminds I'm involved in, or I've had one-on-one coaches in the past. Um, to give you some names and recommendations, like startup and business type CE, Dr. Scott Luna. He has his own seminars down in San Antonio, Texas, for mentorship and coaching. Dental Practice Heroes, Dr. Paul Etchison. He has some books out on Amazon you can read quickly as well. That's where I got some of this information, actually, like the patient journey thing, kind of was part of something he developed, and I just took and made it somewhat relevant to my practice, I guess I would say. But I think that's probably what I would recommend. Also investing in my team. I pay them well. I do not set them at low market. They're at the top tier of the market. And yes, my overhead is higher because of it, but I'd rather have that than have to deal with so much turnover. Um, how did your team, especially your hygienists and assistants, respond to roles beyond clinical care, including marketing and helping close cases? Did they understand the purpose from the start, or was there some hesitation initially? Um, wow, that is it's another great question. Very difficult to answer because it's so dependent on the person. I have my lead hygienist who's been with me from day one. Like she has no problem sitting there talking about a $50,000 treatment plan, looking them dead in the face and telling them they owe them money. That doesn't happen like that very often. But on the opposite side of that, my second hygienist is like the sweetest woman of all time. She has the most name drops in our Google reviews, but she's the one that's super hesitant to say they owe something out of pocket, for their prophy visit or something like that. Um, So certain people respond in different ways, and I don't push them beyond what they're open to, but I will nudge them to get them out of their zone of comfort a little bit and watch them grow. So from day one to now, my second hygienist is so much smoother with it and better. Now she's not going to talk as effectively as my lead hygienist, but um, they kind of adapt pretty well overall, I would say. And yeah, they kind of understand the purpose because that goes into efficiencies. I don't have time for a treatment coordinator to go room to room. We have six hygienists now. Like I'd have to have two or three treatment coordinators, and that's just not feasible. So some of our bigger cases, cosmetics, things like that, my office manager's still doing my treatment coordinating, and we're training somebody to take that over now. So it's so dependent on the personality. You just got to find the right people you want in your practice and then find where they fit on your team. With dental implants, what training or strategic decision has contributed most to expanding your clinical capabilities? Networking, number one. I met my good friend and oral surgeon who also works with biotech. And I met him through a Seattle study club that my other friend invited me to. So just getting out there and talking to people, you just never know who you're going to connect with, and what that connection with that one person will ultimately lead to as far as opportunity. So get out there and network, be authentic with those people. You'll just vibe with certain people, and things just kind of take off from there. There's probably two people in my life where if I didn't know them, I would not be anywhere close to where I am today. Um, Training as far as dental implants, I mean, we do some surgical courses with biotech. I don't know if they send any information out on that, but you can look it up on biotech's website. We do surgical training, we do just lectures, we do live patient, things like that. I actually had the benefit of being friends with my oral surgeon, so he taught me these easy implants one-on-one over the shoulder. He's just authentic dude. Like he just comes in, he's like, let me know, I'll be there, I'll help you out. Like that's just the way it goes between me and him. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for questions. It looks like I know there's just a lot into this. I could probably do 10 lectures on everything we talked about in more detail. So when you get feedback opportunity, I'm happy to receive it. If there's anything you fell short or we could build upon or you'd like to see more of, I'm happy to expand more. Or again, feel free to reach out to me personally, and I'm happy to chat with you on the side through email or Instagram.
That is great. Thank you so much, Dr. Pryor, again for spending some time with us tonight,
Of course.
and just sharing your expertise. It is always a pleasure to learn more from you. I'm going to um, grab your screen real quick, steal your screen from you. And just before we close out tonight, just a quick reminder for everyone with us tonight. If you have any implant or equipment needs before the end of the year, please don't hesitate to reach out to your local representative. You can also contact our customer service team. Their number is on the lower right-hand side of the screen. Or if it's easier, you can always scan this QR code and it will give you access to our website if you need to inquire about any of the products, or if you want to look at more of our education. We do have an education page as well. This webinar tonight, it was recorded, so it is going to be available on our website under the on-demand webinar section. Just want to thank you guys all again for joining us, and I hope everyone has a great night.